Hello class, today we're going to be talking about section 11.3, simplifying rational expressions, which is one of my favorite lessons in the whole book. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, Mr. Lynch, you say that all the time. You were talking about how factoring was your favorite thing. Well, guess what? In this section we get to do a whole bunch of factoring. And not only that, after we do that factoring, we get to cancel things out. It's awesome. Anyway, let's get to work. 3 learning targets today. First, we want to factor the numerator and the denominator to simplify rational expressions. Second, we're going to state the restrictions on the variable of a simplified rational expression. And last, we're going to extend simplification techniques to other algebraic fractions. Let's get to work. No vocab today, by the way. So first, the steps to simplify rational expressions. Step 1, we want to factor the numerator and the denominator. Step 2, we want to express each common factor pair in the numerator and denominator as 1. That's a really fancy way of saying we're going to cancel things out. In step 3, we are going to simplify and state any restrictions on the variable. So our 3 steps today are factor, cancel, simplify, and then we need to not forget to state restrictions. Okay? Factor, cancel, simplify. Let's look at an example. So let's say we have this example here. We have 5a plus 10 over 5a. Now, the first thing we want to do before we do any factoring and canceling, well, not necessarily before any factoring, but before we cancel anything out, we want to state any restrictions. So just like we learned in section 11.2, to figure out the restrictions on our function, we're going to take our denominator, in this case 5a, we're going to set it equal to 0 and solve. Okay? So to solve this, easy enough. We just divide both sides by 5. We get a is equal to 0. So what that tells me is if I plug in 0 for a, my function will become undefined. So therefore, a cannot be equal to 0. We need to attach that to our final answer. Now, let's backtrack a little bit and let's get to simplifying, okay? So, in order to simplify this 5a plus 10 over 5a, we need to follow our 3 steps. Now, very commonly, students just think, oh, easy, I can just cancel out my 5a's, I'm left with 10. Okay? Doesn't quite work like that, unfortunately. If you want to see how that would break, plug in a is equal to 1. You get 5 plus 10 is over 5, that equals 3. 15 over 5 is 3. So we can't just cancel those out. What we can cancel out are factors, meaning they're being multiplied together. Let me show you how. So let's go through our 3 steps. First, factor. All right. Looking at the numerator, I can factor out a greatest common factor. I can factor out a 5. All right. On the bottom, I could rewrite this as 5 times a if I'd like to. It's not necessary, but it might help. And now we can go ahead and start canceling things out. Since I have 5 times something and 5 times something, I can cancel out my 5's, leaving me with just a plus 2 over a. And then we state our restriction, a cannot be equal to 0. That is my final answer. That is my final answer. Okay? So, if we're looking to simplify, and we need to state any restrictions on the variable, we first find the restrictions, then we simplify. Let's look at another example. 3x minus 6 over x squared plus x minus 6. So we're looking to simplify, and we also need to state any restrictions. In order to figure out what the restrictions are, we take our denominator, we set it equal to 0, and we solve. So here we're trying to solve a quadratic function. We learned about 4 different ways of doing that in chapter 10. Solve by factoring, solve using square roots, solve by completing the square, solve using quadratic formula. I think I want to solve this one by factoring. Because factors of negative 6 that add to 1 would be 3 and negative 2. Now we just set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So here I subtract 3 from both sides, x is equal to negative 3. Here I add 2 to both sides, x is equal to 2. Those are my restrictions. Those are my restrictions. So now we need to simplify. So in order to simplify this, we need to follow our 3 steps. Factor, cancel, simplify. Let's start by factoring. In the numerator, I can factor out a 3, leaving me with x minus 2. In the denominator, we just factored that right here. That factors to x plus 3 times x minus 2. And now, here's the really fun part, all right? We already had some fun. We already had some fun by factoring. But now here's the really fun part. You ready? We get to cancel. Now, we have a number x minus 2 and a number x minus 2. We can cancel those out, leaving me with just 3 over x plus 3. And then we need to state our restrictions. X cannot be equal to negative 3, and x cannot be equal to 2. That is my final answer. So I simplified, and then I stated my restrictions. So factor, cancel, simplify, state restrictions. So that's section 11.3. All right, again, we had our 3 learning targets. No vocab. Get your homework done, and I'll answer any questions in class.